Welcome to Mintel's Little Conversation podcast.
Welcome to Mintel's Little Conversation, a podcast series that brings Mintel firmly into a world of modern content consumption. With this series, we will bring together Mintel's brightest minds to discuss some of the trendy, foodie, beauty topics that cross our minds every single day. I'm Edward Bergen, global food and drink analyst and all-round foodie and hummus fanatic. So today, we're going to be looking at a topic that's actually changing the face of advertising and innovation. The topic of influencers. So I'm not going to go into more detail yet. First, I want to introduce you to two of Mintel's, in my opinion, best analysts. So we've got Simon Moriarty, who's the director of our trends platform in EMEA. And we've got Jack Duckett, a senior consumer lifestyles analyst. Guys, introduce yourselves.
After you, Jack.
Well, so I am indeed Mintel's senior consumer lifestyles analyst, the one and only. In my role, I write a series of reports where we look at the attitudes and behaviours of different demographic groups, seeing how those change, whether that be men, women, those be it age cuts, or by different generational group. And we just sort of see what makes the population tick. So that's me.
As in, if you want to have a conversation about pretty much anything lifestyle related, just go and talk to Jack.
That is me. I should be able to cover it, ideally.
Absolutely. And Simon.
Yes, I am indeed Director of Trends for EMEA. So my role is primarily looking after our trends platform, managing a team of content experts who write all of our amazing content. Also part of the global content team, so managing our strategy around the world, and going out and speaking to clients all over Europe, Middle East, Africa, spreading the trends word. So yeah, just like Jack, actually, in a very good position to kind of talk about lots of things, because everything that we do, I hate the phrase trendy stuff, but it's about consumers, it's about people's behaviour, motivations, and all the kind of weird and wonderful things that we do as people.
Okay, so this topic then, I'm hoping both of you will have a few ideas. So to start with, I think we use this term influencer, and anybody maybe over the age of 35, I'm probably going to get shot for saying that, whether they understand this term influencer, because the influencer to maybe my parents is still what they read in the newspaper, or the cookbook that my mum buys from a top professional chef. Can you please define it for me?
Well, as someone over the age of 35, I do understand influencer. I think it's a good point though that you make, because it has changed so much. I think we, as not just as consumers, in terms of who influences us to buy a product or choose a certain fragrance or make a certain meal, we're influenced by everything we see all the time, and often it's subconscious. So I think there's not really a definition of an influence, because one person influencing you in all your decisions is probably an old-fashioned way of looking at things, but you're influenced by every type of Instagram feed, every type of celebrity, every type of advertising you see.
But
and it could be influenced.
Though. So what's changed recently? I think because this term's now used.
Well, I think the term's often referring slightly shortly to social media influencers. That's where that's where the curtness comes in. We've dropped the social media, and the part of the reason behind that is that social media influencers used to sit just on their channel with their followers behind them, but they've erupted out of social media into the rest of our lives. Partly because so is social media. That has erupted from its one-off check once a day on Facebook to see who's our new friend edition, to regular check throughout the day. And so we've probably dropped the social media tag a little bit, because we're a little bit insecure about how much these people play in our lives because of how much social media plays in lives. Is that fair, Simon?
I think so. I think that answers Ed's question as well. What's changed is the number of channels we have, the number of bits of information that come at us all the time. And it kind of goes back to this subconscious approach. If you're mindlessly scrolling through Instagram, or you're looking at Facebook, you're taking in all of this information and you are influenced by it. But I think it's important to see influencers not necessarily as making you make a decision. It's kind of many things are influencing lots of decisions that you make every single day.
So I've got a problem with the term though. So we had in the UK, we had Love Island last summer.
Of course.
And within and Jack, you watched it like I did.
Without
about 2 weeks after Love Island ended, some of these guys who had been on the show had 1 million followers. By the way, the two that won broke up yesterday.
I saw it was a headline in the newspaper.
Sorry, Simon's getting annoyed.
So upset.
I know.
So that's one of the things. I think that's one of the big challenges, is that there are people that have come out of nowhere they're selling brands and talking about products and services, but yet who are they?
Yeah, so I think the influencer used to be very much based, I mean, it's not used to be, but there's always been sort of an influencer who is just a celebrity that sits within the socialite realm. We went through a period at the start of the social media boom, and up until more recently, really, where influencers were people who brought a specific skill set or a specific typology that was interesting to the consumer, and those have breadthened greatly. And so that's why we've now got these celebrity shows where an influencer is just a person like you and I. It's someone who has a way of life that we somewhat to identify with. They're not just able to offer us a beauty skill or a way of cooking something. They emanate a lifestyle that we particularly aspire to, or someone might aspire to. I'm not sure I could.
But I think aspiration is the key, because it's not
exactly.
It's not suddenly that we've moved from an expert in a field influences you to a random person who's been on TV for a month takes that person's place, because we've had celebrity endorsements forever.
Yeah.
And George Clooney isn't a coffee expert. Jennifer Aniston isn't a skincare expert.
I think George Clooney always wanted a coffee business though.
Oh, he wanted a tequila business.
Oh, that's true.
He got that. I mean, George Clooney can pretty much do whatever he wants. But I think what we've seen is a shift in attitudes to this idea of what celebrity is. So we've had, celebrity endorsements. A brand would get someone famous to be the spokesperson because that person is recognisable, not because they have, as Liam Neeson would say, a unique set of skills.
Can't believe you just brought that in.
You can't have a podcast about Neeson. But we've moved away. People are looking for aspiration that's different. So they'll see people like the celebrities, in inverted commas, on Love Island or whatever kind of reality TV show. And those people are probably more like the viewer.
Yeah.
Because they're similar ages, they come from a similar background. We've seen the growth on Instagram in particular, where brands are getting involved with people who have built up a large following. So there's a guy called Father of Daughters who started his Instagram post. It was just taking photos because he's the only guy in a family of 5 women. So he's got young children and a wife, and he lives a sort of everyday life. And he takes photos and videos of what it's like to look after small girls, being kind of outnumbered in his own home, all the different products and services that he uses. And brands started to jump onto that. So he got, I think it was Audi, gave him a car for a week and got him to take photos and record what it was like, what the sort of benefits of having that particular vehicle for his particular needs. And people associate with that because he's a working father, he's got small children, he's got a specific role, he's got a normal job, and people are more likely to sort of tie into that rather than thinking, well, if Gerard Butler is driving a Ferrari around Hong Kong, I'm going to try and one day get a Ferrari. That's kind of unrealistic aspiration. Whereas this was, I think an Audi would suit me because I've got 3 small children. I do the school run. I need to go and get my groceries on a Saturday, whatever it is.
I think that's absolutely true, Simon. But I also think there's starting to be a gap emerging where it's the next step. There's almost an American dream element to the influencers we aspire to. And they've stepped out of just being people they can relate to, and almost the biggest social media stars are the ones that have left that world behind and entered a world where it's aspirational to the point it's not quite attainable. It's only attainable if you follow the same lifestyle path they have. That's where you get the Love Island stars from. You get things like Zoella, who went from once picking out makeup products from a small bag in front of her to now it has to be very, very high-end luxury bags that she pulls all of her products out of. And the point is that people see a lot of these influencers as having a career path or a life trajectory they can follow. And I think for younger people in particular, that level of the influencer isn't so much I'm being influenced by this person because we have a lifestyle that matches. It's a lifestyle that I can aspire to as well. I think that gap between aspiration and comparability. I think that's
interesting. I think there's become a bit of a dark side to influencers. You've actually talked about it a lot, which is, I think the classic one is these good-looking people from reality shows are then advertising weight loss programs, or advertising cosmetic surgery, or advertising different gym regimes that suit them, and either people who maybe don't have that physique are feeling either left out and it's a bit of a problem for them, or this is becoming a big topic in the news at the moment.
But I think that's always been the case. I mean, I think we're more aware of it because there are so many more of those types of people.
Exactly.
But, even before social media, if you saw, advertising used to be a lot kind of more stereotypical than it is now, and advertising was built around beautiful celebrities. And it even, back then you would see someone advertising primarily beauty and personal care products with, a six-pack and beach body and that kind of thing. And people it had the same negative impact because it's this unattainable idea of beauty. I think because we've seen the growth and the emergence of it's very relatively easy to become an influencer online. If you do it the right way, if you target the right followers, you can become an influencer. And what's dangerous, I think, is that people are able to talk to so many consumers about so many things without this kind of check. They don't have any barriers in place. So someone can go online and create a video talking about whatever they want, and they will influence people. The majority, well, maybe not the majority, but a lot of consumers are sensible enough to kind of think, this isn't right for me. I need more information. I need more transparency. But I think particularly when it comes to speaking to young people and targeting children and teenagers, that's where it becomes more of a dangerous, sort of, as you said, a dark area. I mean, the fact that I think the person who made the most money on YouTube this year was a child doing toy comparisons and toy reviews. And they're making millions and millions of dollars. And it's kind of, you can see it, it's quite a nice thing. It's a kid who's getting exposure and they're making money, but also that has quite a lot of negative connotations. It's like living in
dark.
An unrealistic world. Are they being used by brands, by parents? Are we going to see more people pushing their children in front of a camera to do like silly things? We've seen that in the past where people have been they've been charged, there've been legal repercussions for playing pranks on their children and sort of treating people badly on...
Turning your child into a meme.
Yeah, treating people badly online.
What one that I saw last year a lot was people dressing their kids up to be sort of movie posters and just copying movie posters, and then you see that every single day or week.
And that's where it gets dark. That's where it gets dangerous because, I mean, we know from our research at Mintel that by the time you're 5 years old, you have about 5,000 pictures of yourself on the internet. And before you were in that age period, you have no control over what goes online. You don't even have your own account. A lot of, I find it a bit weird that people are setting up accounts for their children. And you do think...
Or their dogs, for example.
Or their dogs, or their household appliances, or their cars, or whatever. But it's where it becomes that sort of line between, this is what I want to share. I want to influence my friends and close family and, by sharing what I'm eating, where I'm going on holiday. And there is a genuine need for social research to be a tool of research, of social media to be a tool of research.
Oh yeah.
We know that people choose holiday destinations based on Instagram pictures, for example. So there is genuine positivity in influencing people, but there's also a fine line between just shouting into the void.
Jack's done a lot of this. I think you've done. He does.
A lot of influencing. I think it's the negativity sits around the number. Pick out what you said just then. It's the pure number of influencers that have emerged in recent years. I think it's easy to say there's always been a model to aspire to. There's always been someone to look at and think, oh, why don't I look like that? But that's just that person is the perception that comes from it. Now, if you like a photo of someone who looks a certain way or behaves in a certain way, the algorithms that are Instagram or Facebook or Snapchat or any of those will direct everyone else in that category at you, and suddenly it seems like there's a lot of people who look this way or who behave this way, and all of a sudden you're the outsider. And of course, the more you like, the more it reinforces that. It goes round. It creates a wall of this that's very hard to get out of. And I think it's that message that I worry about the most, because it's recurring, it's very strong, it's self reinforcing, and it's one that young people aren't often equipped for. It's that difference between reality and not reality that young people aren't wrongly not already set up for. They're not. That's not new. They couldn't always tell what was photoshopped, what wasn't photoshopped, just as they can't tell what's the 60th photo taken and published on Instagram by that person or not. And it's that difficulty that brands, I think, almost have a role to work on, to expose and to show what authenticity is.
On the brands, what if you're then? We've talked about some of the challenge of the dark side. If you're a brand and you want to, because brands are now dealing with this situation where they used to be the experts of the industry in, if you want to go learn about, tomato ketchup, you probably look at Heinz and you look at them. But now maybe if reality stars endorsing, Stokes ketchup, what does that mean for the big brands? How do you think they can react to this change in market? What would you suggest, both of you?
Well, I don't think people are going to move away from brands as influencers at the end, at the sort of the last point of influence. So that the brand might have a spokesperson or a group of spokespeople, but I think we as consumers on the whole understand that, this celebrity from Love Island isn't an expert in how to create condiments. They're just the face of the brand. So we still trust that the brand behind that is the expert in ingredients and sourcing and whatever else. And I think actually going back to Jack's point about young people, I think we're actually where it might get more difficult to kind of engage is with older consumers, because young people are more aware of that level of noise on social media. Young people are spending time trying to actually do different things outside of social media. They're stepping back. They have more of a purpose when they go online, so they're actually more aware of this level of information and the damage it can do in terms of
is that true?
Yeah. Our
They're
research
pushing
shows
back?
that 16 to 24-year-olds are making a conscious effort to cut back on social media. Brands like Instagram, for example, is actually saying to its users, don't use us all the time, because it's an interesting strategy, and it shows that the brands themselves are aware of all of this information and saying, take some time off Instagram. That's the brand. It's kind of positioning itself as it cares about its users, but also it knows that if you take a break from using Instagram, you're going to come back and be more focused,
more engaged with the
content.
Exactly.
The ONS just released something recently. That's and that's in the UK in their body. They released something about, when we talked about it, we talked about it yesterday from the ONS. They released something about isolation. And they had numbers where, especially kids in cities, especially kids that are less affluent, but that they're feeling extremely isolated. And that's kind of where maybe I disagree with you here, that I think that there is a big problem amongst young people where they're not talking to others and they're talking to their screens. 16
to 24-year-olds are obviously more conscious, and they've got more education, more information, more knowledge, so they are making that effort. So I think it's the under 16s that are the issue.
Problem.
So when you talk about children,
12 to 15-year-olds, I mean, we had that incredible stat from Lifestyles of Children and Teens this year, which found that over half of children 12 to 16 say it's easier to make friends online via, referring to social media. I think from that perspective, it's that these young children are given, I think as Simon was alluding to, they're given the opportunity to make friends very easily, or the perception of making friends very easily. But there is, bountiful research to show that the types of friends that you make online, whether that be through social media platforms or through gaming, remember, which is the other big option for making online friends for this group, the types of friends they make are superficial friendships. They're not relationships that can cause the back and forth for the emotional discussions that are required or given from real world friendships. And I think without those, that's where this feeling of loneliness is coming from.
I don't disagree with that, but I think the change in consumer perception and the changing world in which we live, and the fact that everything we do, or the majority of things we do, is tied to digital. It's the new way of communicating. It's the mainstream way of communicating. People's attitudes actually show that when they make connections online, they do consider that to be a genuine friendship. And in a lot of cases, it is a friendship. There's no kind of connotations behind it.
It's not got the...
They might not meet in real life, but they consider themselves to be genuine friends, and it does have a positive in terms of that connection. But the social isolation trend is obviously massive. With or without social media, that would still be an issue, I think. Because we would always have young people in smaller towns, in less urban areas, that don't have the resources or the finances maybe to go out and experience things that people in bigger cities or more affluent young people do.
But we're seeing that city people are the most lonely, that's the thing.
Yeah, and I think as cities grow, that's going to cause more of an issue.
Okay, so there's no
but I think the main point is that social media can do more to foster positivity.
Yes.
I think what we need to see from brands, and Instagram has started this a little bit, Facebook less so, is brands actually using their platforms to celebrate things like inclusivity, sharing of skills, rather than this competitive element where you're seeing how many friends you have versus your friends. You're seeing, does this person have better profile picture? Does this person have more followers on Instagram? Does this person get more likes on Twitter? This level of competition is where the idea of influence is kind of slightly changed over time, I think, because it's much more easy to tell how successful you are,
how influential you are, based on the number of people that you've got
numbers
following.
behind it. So in the past, a brand would have been able to track viewing figures of its advertising online, sales based on a marketing campaign, but that was at the brand level. Now it's at the consumer level, where you can say, I follow this person on Instagram, as a result I've got X number of followers. I did this tweet, as a result I got 25 retweets, and it's consumers themselves are becoming influencers.
I also think there's an opportunity for just a different type of influencer to emerge. I think brands are recurringly reusing the same typology of inspiring influencer. And I think a different option, someone that's from a different industry, that's not just based on a reality star, etc. I think would be very interesting to see that brings a skill set, or that's slightly out of your category, even just to show the multiple applications that can come.
Yeah, and I think reality TV, social media, these kind of fairly new platforms where anyone can have a voice, I think we're going to see those change. I mean, the fact that Big Brother has kind of been axed after a number of years. Love Island, is very successful at the moment. Something else will come and take its place.
Of course.
We've seen the growth of kind of more real kind of shows and social media celebrities coming to the fore. So people, I think, are more aware of this idea of superficiality.
Yeah.
And they don't necessarily get anything out of it. And people, because there is so much information, so much noise, people are more aware of what they want to focus on and who they want to follow or be followed by.
Okay, so let's change the conversation a little bit. Both of you always say very interesting things, in my opinion.
Thanks.
But then who influences... I will ask you, who are your biggest influencers? So if I'm going to talk about myself, because I love talking about myself, it's like being centre of attention.
Do.
Thank you. I am currently wearing a Serge Denim t-shirt. This is me advertising, but I follow a guy called Oliver Proudlock.
It looks beautiful.
Thank you.
Phenomenal.
It's black and got a brand name on the front. Chap called Oliver Proudlock, who's in the show Made in Chelsea, but I actually like him because his entire social media sort of stories, the way he does it, is that he's got like little taglines like "Yeah, baby," and then he's used those taglines to put them on his clothes. So he gets a lot of people seeing this persona of him, and then he's quite exciting and quite eccentric, then he puts them on his clothes.
Why is that a positive? Just out of
I
interest.
find him entertaining.
Okay, so it's the entertainment level.
Yeah, and the guy's ripped. He's like
so
cool.
It's
He's quite
as well.
Well, it's not going to happen with me. I'm a foodie. It's going to be a problem.
As you're saying, it's the fact he's got his catchphrases. He's also, he's a good-looking guy. He's ripped. So there's.
Simon, I think you've just ruined all of my Instagram idols, because basically I fancy all of them.
No, it's not a criticism. It was a genuine it's interesting to see what influences people.
It's the entertainment factor, and I think the way he advertises brands is pretty cool, and most of the brands are very plain colours, and I like plain colours with one little picture on. So that's an influencer. I say it's an influencer, probably just from social media enjoyment.
Well, he's influenced you to buy his brand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask the two of you, give me an influencer and why.
It's a tough question. I think Jack is in the same position as well. To try and, I think going back to the point at the very start of the podcast, there are so many influencers, and a lot of them you don't know that they're influencing you until after the event. So it's hard to then, unless you buy a specific brand because of a specific person, or you choose a specific product because it's advertised by a specific person. So I find it difficult to think I am influenced by X, Y, and Z, because I like to think that I make my own decisions. But a lot of the decisions I make, whether it's everyone's looking at
We're
me
all
very
smiling
strangely.
and going,
I do.
Oh wow!
Really well done.
But it's also, it's probably not true. I like to think, as I'm sure most people do, I dress a certain way or I behave a certain way because I have
an identity,
my own way of doing things, my own set of standards, my own set of morals. But I'm also aware that, you'll see an advert for a shirt or a pair of trainers and think, yeah, I could get away with that. Yeah. And maybe buy not necessarily the same brand, but follow the same.
So there's
look.
Nobody out there that you've seen on news or Twitter or social media where you've gone, I really like what they say.
I like the father of daughters. I'm not a father of daughters or any type of child, but I like his approach to social media, because I think he's a likable. So it goes back to your point. It's a likable person, quite an entertainer. He comes across as a genuine person. But I would never think, well, I'm going to aspire to live that life, because it's a different lifestyle to mine. I tend to be more influenced by things like authors or business people who move into things like social enterprise, and they talk about that online. And it's not because it's a kind of do-gooding kind of thing. It's because it's interesting to see how people use their own influence to diversify into a different field. So. For example, there's an author called Dave Eggers, an American author, who has done lots and lots of different things. And, I was influenced by him when I was younger because I read one of his books, his autobiography. And again, it was a different life to mine, but I felt really engaged with the book and his story and where he was going in his life. And then he diversified and opened a series of charities in the US, educating young people. He's created a series of books listening to refugees and then fictionalizing their stories as novels, which is a really interesting way of getting their story out and influencing other people. And he does lots of TED Talks and things about why he's decided to go down this route. So I think people that kind of, they start in one area and then they try and use their skills and their wealth and their influence to diversify across, which is similar to what a celebrity from Love Island would do, because they start as one type of person and then they try and diversify. I think just because of the type of person I am, I'm less influenced by people who might go from being on reality TV to selling T-shirts or selling condiments or selling a fitness regime. I'm more interested in people who are, like the guy who won the first series of The Apprentice then founded a charity to help young people set up their own businesses. That kind of taps into more of what I'm interested in.
Simon, you're a lot nicer person than I am.
That was a lie.
I am influenced by, I am a huge ballet fanatic, as is well known. If any of my heroes, Stephen McRae or Federico Bonelli, wear a certain brand of t-shirt or of leggings or tights, then I will probably buy them, just because I think it's a great endorsement. So I'm a very classical, easily influenced. But otherwise, I think my social media following is based on people I think who work in areas that I have no idea about. And I love the window they can offer into certain things. There's some gardeners who basically look after National Trust gardens, a group of women who run a gardening business that look after sort of stately homes gardens, women who left the city in their 40s and 50s to do this. And I'm fascinated by their passion for it. They're getting up every morning to look after these flowers. They're so involved in it. It's totally a world outside of what I'm used to. I think it's absolutely fascinating. And that sort of thing, they could bring up a flower that I've never heard of. I think I have to have it for my garden. It's just these insights into worlds that you just don't know anything about. That's what I find absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, I think that's the power of influence. I think that's the positive of influence. It's where you get this genuine kind of, that could benefit my life in some way. And it might be at a very small level.
Yeah.
And also, I just because I said I like following people who are like into kind of ethical things, I do also see celebrities wearing t-shirts and then go and buy that t-shirt. It's not either or. It's not, I think. And also you're influenced by people who aren't on social media. You're influenced by your colleagues, your friends.
Your family, your parents.
You see how people behave, you follow that behavior. You see how people dress, you follow that dress. People are, we're creatures of habit and community.
So I'm going to try and ask you to influence our listeners. Can you say something that you've seen recently? Whether it's an observation of some sort, whether it's in food, whether it's in a lifestyle or a ballet or something, where you think it's inspired you and you want to influence others to get inspired too.
That's a very tough
It's a great way to end any podcast.
It's nice to end a podcast with silence.
I can give you mine to get you thinking. So I'm a massive fan of Ellen DeGeneres, like huge. She does something through Christmas, and it's Christmas now, where she does, I think she just call it the 12 days of Christmas. Basically, each day she gives really good people, super amazing ethical people, massive gifts, and like goes to their house, puts it in a giant box, and then they open the box and it's like a massive new car for a family where they've been finding it hard to make ends meet, or gives them a huge pile of money for amazing people that run a soup kitchen all over the city. That has always, I absolutely love it, and I follow it every day because it's just totally inspiring. And yeah, she's just wonderful. So that's mine.
Well, I've been watching The Hotel of the Rich and Famous, I think it is, on BBC at the moment, the documentary about the Corinthia Hotel in London. London's one of its most expensive hotels. And I think something that struck me is that we regularly like to write off and say that people in Britain don't want to work in service jobs, or there's so many roles that people don't want to work in because it's too difficult, it's not for us. But it's incorrect. And this is an amazing documentary showing the various different ways that we work in the service industry and the high level of integrity people show in different jobs. And we're prepared people take the journey from waiter all the way up to managing one of Britain's most prestigious hotels. And it's this wonderful story of hard work and complete dedication to a role that I think is so inspiring. And I think those sorts of stories told more widely in different industries, there's so many ways of doing it, could be so inspirational to young people today.
I think, that idea of a journey is really powerful when it comes to influencers. It's seeing where people have come from and where they're going. I mean, I'm struggling to think of something recently just because I think I've probably been influenced by so many things every single day that is hard to drill down. But I do remember very clearly from a few years ago, I think it was Tommy Hilfiger did a TV spot, a sort of generic standard aftershave advert, black and white, sitting on a beach, talking like sort of American monotone voiceover,
of course,
with sort of
very
platitudes.
Chic, very chic.
But I remember being struck by the sort of message that was coming across. It was a eau de toilette for men, and I think the tagline was something like, "Being a gentleman is being a gentle man." And I remember being struck that was quite a nice, aspirational. I had no affiliation with the brand. I probably didn't even I wasn't shaving at that point, probably, so I didn't wear aftershave.
He's still not shaving now,
This
by
is
the way.
I was probably a teenager, and
It's very ahead of his time.
I remember thinking that's if I consciously choose to live my life in a certain way, then there were worse things to follow, and it wasn't because of the brand; it was because of that message. This idea of being a nice person, being a gentle man, and kind of, I think that's where influence is really positive. It's where it has a simple, succinct message, and it's not trying to sell you a product necessarily. It's not trying to sell you a way of life, but it's selling you a message.
That one's redefining masculinity, which I like.
Yeah, and then it's
way ahead of its time.
From then, even then, I knew I wanted to work in consumer trends.
Oh,
did
yeah,
you?
you
Oh,
did.
that's so sweet.
I don't think.
Okay, guys, so you love it, both of you. Just to finish, just want to say thank you to you both.
Hey, thank you.
It was,
Thank you.
I think that was excellent, really interesting, and we got a few giggles going through there and a bit of conversation and discussion. So, guys, if you're interested in seeing what Mintel has to offer, you can follow Mintel on, and we can influence you on Twitter at Mintel News, or find us on LinkedIn. Both of these guys, Simon Moriarty and Jack Duckett, are on there as well. I'm sure they'll answer any questions that you have. Once again, thank you very much, and we'll be with you soon. That's
Thank
Mintel's
you.
little
Thank
conversation.